Hey everyone, Joel here again. Um, Before we start this next episode off, this is probably going to be the last one I do for a little bit, at least for like a couple months, like a month or two, while I find more people to interview. This interview is pretty cool because this one wasn't a hashtag search. Um, Back in March, I joined a network called Propel, and it's basically a network of people in corporate companies doesn't make any sense. People working at companies, people working in finance, people on the VC side, entrepreneurs. It's just a network of individuals who join. You get access to a Slack channel, and it's basically people looking for just connections. It's nationwide. I want to say there's about 50 something members there. I may be undershooting, but it's called Propel. I think I found out about it through LinkedIn, but it's pretty cool. I've met a bunch of people who work in different industries, a bunch of people who are starting businesses, just doing a plethora of things. And when I got into this network, I reached out to people for potential Moonlighters Club, interviews. And I met the founder of, at this point, I think it's still in stealth, but I met Jared from Pineapple AF, and we just started talking in the Slack channel. When I told him what the Moonlighters Club was about, what I do, what I'm trying to do with it, and he was telling me about his startup, and we decided to just set up an interview and go from there. So this interview was conducted. It is now, what month is it? July. I think I did this interview in May. No, probably before that, April. So it was, me still working at the startup that I just left, the event startup I just left. So my days were pretty busy. So I had to find time like right after work to fit this in. I had already scheduled another batch of interviews, and I was pretty much just going crazy over this period, like this 2 to 3 week period of just interview at the interview, just batching them together. But this interview was like the tail end of all of that. That means for 2021, I've interviewed around 6 people, somewhere around here for the first half. So then for the second half of 2021, I think I'm going to have at least 15 lined up, if not more. The more the merrier. So this is a great interview. It's another person following their passion. It's pretty cool because we talk about media, filmmaking, changing your focuses in life professionally. What you go to college for may not be what you end up working on or working with for the majority of your life. Sticking with things, teamwork, mentorship, all of that is hit on this. And it was someone who I had met through this network who I didn't know before, which was cool. And we had a really good conversation. So I hope you enjoy this. What is it, July? I'm sure I'll have some interviews lined up for sure, first week of August, actually in person. But there will be plenty more coming. This is one of those interviews that lets me know that I'm doing the right thing by just talking to people. So again, Joel Edwards here. Hope you enjoy it. I hope life is going well from you. I hope you're following your passion. I hope we're staying stress-free. And I hope we're having fun. Thanks again for listening, and enjoy.
I don't moonlight as a rapper. My jersey up too high in the rafters. I got a front team, new knife and a tractor. Still sipping that moonshine and I'm plastered.
All right, so let's kick things off and get started. Hello, everyone. We're back with another episode of the Moonlighters Club. Your host, Joel Edwards, here in DC, hot and humid, with another episode. So, it's almost summertime out here, so I'm just getting ready for a painful, humid, fun summer. Um, I'm really excited about this interview. A while back, actually, I don't know how long ago it was, but I signed up to be part of a network, the Propel Network, which is awesome. And I was able to meet some awesome movers and shakers. And I'm only a month in, and I'm meeting some really cool people. And that's how I met this individual. Jared, welcome to the show. Thank you for jumping on. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well today. I'm feeling that northeast humidity and temperature rising. I need to get my air conditioning units in my apartment.
Yeah, that was my wife's from the south. I'm from the north. So when we met in Boston, And her whole thing about not having central air used to just drive her
Mm.
crazy. Like the fact that we didn't just have centralized AC. I'm like, these houses are 1,000 years old.
Yeah,
There's no AC in
totally.
Boston.
Totally.
um, so yeah, let's just kick things off. Jared, where you from originally?
Well, speaking of, I'm actually from Dallas, Texas. So I don't know if listeners would
Nice.
consider that the South, but I do. So I'm from Dallas, Texas, originally, born and raised.
Nice. I've been to Dallas once. I loved it, man. People were down on it. I
Mm.
loved it. I love
You must
Dallas.
have gone in the
Had
last
a great time.
10 years or so, because prior to that, it was
Yeah.
not really much of a destination, but it's definitely come a long way.
It was about 3 years
Okay.
ago, I want to say, and I got to see downtown, which definitely looks like the 1970s. Like downtown
Yeah.
did, but I got to hang out in the what is it, the Arts
Hmm.
District,
Bishop Arts
and I
District?
got to hang out Bishop Arts
Yeah.
District. Arts
Yeah.
District. There you go. Lockhart Barbecue,
Okay.
best
Oh,
brisket I've
yeah.
ever
Oh,
had.
yeah.
And then I got to hang out in Deep
Oh,
Ellum,
yeah.
which I was in love
Oh,
with.
man.
Man, that was
Yeah,
just
you got
great.
the full experience.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it. So, grew up in Dallas. Did you were you there like your old childhood, high school, all that?
Yeah, yeah. Born and raised there through high school. Grew up in North Dallas. This somebody I went on a date with recently told me for the first time in my life that she doesn't actually think I'm from Dallas. So I am now questioning my identity. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm from Dallas. I'm from an area in North Dallas and was there all through growing up and then through high school until I moved to Los Angeles for college.
Oh, where did you go to school?
I went to USC, the University of Southern California, for film production.
What?
Mhm.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I heard USC's got a really good film program,
They say
right?
it's the best in the world, if I may say so.
Yeah. How'd you like it?
um, I I mean, how to distill 4 years into. I had an amazing time at USC. Um, I've always been very interested in all kinds of different subject matters, and so at the behest of my mom, I went to USC rather than another film school, so that if I had my interests expand, as they often did as a kid, I would be able to pursue other academic areas as well. And so I had a terrific time studying film production and neuroscience and a lot of Japanese language at USC, and just got to they really emphasize like clubs there, like extracurriculars, and so I actually founded an a cappella group and got to do that, and just did all kinds of stuff at
Nice.
USC. It was a blast.
Yeah, that's something that people like anyone whoever's listening to this, if you're about to go to school or go back to school, the clubs
Totally.
so underrated in higher education. Like you just think about class, but you never know who you're going to meet in
Oh
those
man.
things and the time you'll have.
Oh,
That's
it
pretty
changed. I
cool.
mean, we were gigging out all over LA. Like it was a whole business that we ran, while we were students. So like maybe
Nice.
that was my first moonlighter experience, being in college. But
So you were booking
yeah, we were
shows.
booking shows. We went on tour. We did high school tours in multiple parts of the country. We did shows for multiple hundreds of people that we sold tickets for. We were all dressed up in suits with microphones for 600 people in an audience. For an hour and a half show.
Nice, man. What was the group's name?
It's called the Trojan Men.
Nice. Okay. Okay. All right. How was it? It's like a
No,
quartet.
it's all male a cappella. There were anywhere from like, depending on the season, anywhere from 7 to like 15 of us, I'd say.
Nice, man. That's awesome. That's really
Yeah,
awesome. It's
yeah,
really awesome. So that little taste for it there. When you were done with school, did you have any idea what the next steps were? I've actually, it's funny. I've never been to Los Angeles. I've been to tons of places in California that aren't
yeah,
LA,
yeah.
but I have friends, actually the co-founder of this
Mm.
podcast, my good friend Sean moved to LA a few years ago to pursue
Oh,
acting
right
full time.
on.
Right. And I feel like everyone it just sounds scary to me, bro. It's like there's so many talented people I know that are like, yo, I do film, the back
Yeah,
end of it or the front
yeah,
end of it. I'm just like, what do you do? So when you
yeah.
graduated, did you have an idea of what you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, I definitely did. I got into film when I was younger. I I actually got into programming when I was a kid, and then I got into film. And so for like many years, I had this idea like of creating a feature film, like a full length film, like you'd see in a theater. And I was almost to the point that I like I think I might have even asked, but I was dreaming of like saying to my parents, "Hey, instead of sending me to college, how about if you're going to put any money towards college, why don't you just give me that to finance a feature film and kickstart my career?" So I'd kind of had this vision of creating a full length film all throughout college, and so as I was coming to the close of it, I was starting to figure out how to produce a feature film, and went off and did exactly that after graduating.
Ah, so you got
I
to do it?
did, yeah,
Oh man, you gotta. So what was that like? Like I have friends who've done like shorter films and things
yeah,
like that. Um, uh, I'm just curious to hear this process. What was the film?
yeah.
Yeah, how'd you get that
Yeah,
done?
yeah. Well, it's like it's a whole story. Um, yeah, well, I originally wanted to do a fiction feature film. That was kind of my original concept, but as I was getting towards the end of USC, had gotten really into documentary, and I became really interested in how powerful reality itself could be, and creating stories about reality itself rather than something fictional. Is kind of how I was thinking about it at that time, anyway. And so I had made a short documentary, about a 16 and a half minute documentary with a film partner in my final semester, and about old people in LA at a retirement community out there. And I called her up after graduating, and I said, "Hey, I think we like did something real good there, and we got the prowess to make a feature happen. So, would you be interested in doing a feature film on the same topic?" Um, and so she was up for it, and you know, um, I like I had been inspired to make a movie about old people because I was having dinner. I was going into that final semester of USC looking for a topic to do this documentary that I knew I was going to make on. And I was having dinner with my grandmother in Texas at her retirement community. And this couple walked by holding hands. And she goes, "Oh, get a room." And I was like, "Mama, are people still having sex here?" She goes, "Oh, sure." It's like, "Really?" She goes, "Oh, yeah. Just because you get old doesn't mean you have to lay down and die." And I was like, "Damn, okay." Like, I never really thought about that. So, between that and a friend of hers who had dementia, who was no longer there that evening, her dementia had progressed to a point she could no longer function at this community for independent living seniors. It really impacted my grandmother. Like, this was a close friend of hers. And I saw between these two things that there's like a whole emotional world at this age that I really hadn't considered. And so I decided to make a short documentary. We had a great experience. And so like I said, I pitched my film partner on doing a feature. And so we went and did that. And we did it back in Dallas, Texas. Back, actually, my grandmother had been telling me for many years, like, "You got to come film with me and my friends. It'd be just like the Golden Girls." And I was always like, "Yeah, yeah." But sure enough, I wanted to do a feature film after I graduated, and I knew her and her friends were good characters, and that's what mattered on screen. And so we pulled it off, and we went and shot for 4 months in a retirement community in Texas, and got 215 hours of footage. And I spent 6 months editing it, or 9 months editing it, and did the whole festivals thing, and distributed it, licensed it for TV, online, like, did a ton of screenings. Like, it was a whole business basically that we made out of it.
First of all, congratulations.
Thanks.
There's so many people who want to do that exact thing,
Hmm.
right? Whether it's fiction or documentary or
Hmm.
whatever, but never get to the end. The fact that you got to the end is huge, man. And just hearing about the editing just gave me nightmares. Like I'm barely an editor. Like I can do a little bit here and
Yeah.
there. I have podcast episodes, but editing matters so
It's
much, man,
everything.
especially to
Yeah.
film. And when I see a finished film, I'm like, damn, that must have sucked to sit in that room, just kind of like you piece it together, but it's so
It really
worth it.
well, yeah, it
So
really did, and I had to learn a lot about how to motivate myself because I was starting to. It was very daunting. I mean, 215 hours of footage is it's a lot to stare down and be like, "Oh crap, I have to make a 90-minute movie out of this," like, and it could take so many millions of permutations to get there, right? So, um, that's a whole story, right? But I ended up, you know, yeah, like pulled in resources and kind of started making real deadlines for myself, kind of taking stock of how I knew I would be motivated to get this thing done, and got it done. So but it was quite a intimidating thing to do, frankly. So
yeah. So when that's done, did you immediately think to do more films?
yeah,
Yeah. Once you get something like that, a big project like that is
yeah.
done. What are your sights set on next normally?
Well, I originally thought that was gonna turn into like that would be a big stepping stone in my career. Like that maybe other people would start to hire me to direct, documentaries or something like that, or commercials. But while I was editing it and starting to wrap up post production and start to submit to festivals and think about distribution more hands on, um, I also had a ex girlfriend who was a very talented artist from college, and she had put her artwork on Facebook, and it was really beautiful. And I thought, wow, Cecilia is her name. You really have to share this with the world. I think that this is like powerful art, and I think people would appreciate it. And she was like, well, I don't really know how to put up a website. And I said, well, but you should. And she was like, can you do it for me? So I put up a website for her, long story short, and her artwork ended up going viral online. And this is pre Instagram, so there was no such thing, if you can imagine, for all the listeners out there. um, but what ended up happening is we put an email on the website, and we started getting inquiries from all over the world for her art, like whether to buy it or to license it or to make it into advertising, or what exhibitions, whatever. So I just kind of started trying to tame that fire hose however I could, just figure out what kind of business can I make out of this. And so that ended up turning into what I did next. Like I started distributing my film. I saw where that took me, and my film was called The Mayor, by the way. So I just kind of distributed the Mayor, started going to screenings. I started managing Cecilia's art and like sales and distribution of that and production, and seeing where that took me. And then at the same time, I started directing and dramaturging, is what it's called, like guiding the writing process of these full length plays, like autobiographical plays, like one person shows in LA. And so I started dramaturging and
Okay.
directing those. And so between those three things, I had a lot on my hands. And that's kind of how I was making a living and trying to piece it together for a few years and kind of see where those took me, basically.
Okay. So, how hard was it managing the three?
Um, it, it in like for it was pretty cool, actually. I mean, it was a lot. And I didn't have like the discipline or the training to like really I mean, I was young, I was 22 or 23, and so very independent minded, like trying to just do it all on my own kind of thing, and didn't hadn't worked in like a corporate setting, and so I didn't really have like any training of like how to run a business. Um, so I was like having to figure all that out simultaneously to the best of my ability, and it was a lot. I mean, I was working a lot, and but it was all very exciting. I felt like I was having some kind of impact, and these things had a lot of potential, and audiences and people were seeing whether it's the art or the plays or the movie. So it's rewarding in that sense. I really got to feel the audience, I guess, the buyer, if you will. And and what I started to find was that like the stuff with Cecilia's art would kind of have a drier spell for a month, and I could shift focus to the Mayor. Or the Mayor wouldn't have a festival or screenings or licensing deals in the works, so I would shift focus to Cecilia's art or the theater. So I kind of started to see that I could shift gears and kind of play with all three while not treating them all as full time, basically. So it kind of worked out, but it was still a lot of work.
Yeah. Did you have? Because like juggling projects is weird to me. I do the same thing.
Mm,
Like I emotionally, you'll just wake up feeling different about one. Sometimes it's reactionary. You're like, all right, well, this is so I move over to this because this isn't
mm,
happening right now. But sometimes it's emotional with me where I'm like, I just feel like doing this one more than the other
totally.
today or for a couple of weeks. Did you have an end goal in mind for all of them, or like separate ones? Like, okay, I'll stop this if this one gets to X, or I'll stop this when this gets to Y, or were you just kind of letting it go?
I was letting it go. I believed idealistically at that time, that I thought in particular that Cecilia's art could be really big. It was about it, I mean, if you go to ceciliaweberart.com, you can see it, but it's like this beautiful art that really captures your attention. It's like these beautiful flowers and butterflies and insects and creatures. And when you look closely, I don't really want to give it away, but when you look closely, you see that they're all made up of naked people. And so it really kind of had this connection between nature and humanity, and it had a kind of environmental mission. And so both of those really resonated with me, kind of like sex positivity and reducing body shame, in society. All those things, I really believed in them. And I thought, given like the impact, or kind of not impact, but traction it was getting, I felt like it was really my rocket ship to run into the ground in a way. And so I thought it would really take me to some crazy heights. And so I really pursued it. So I kind of, um, I still had machinations of doing other film projects of my own, but I also came to the recognition that all of these projects were such big undertakings to begin with that I like should really carry them to their end in some sense before starting to create other stuff, I guess. Um, but like I did end up directing a commercial and entering into this like social media contest that I won, and that started taking me places too. So I don't know. I'm more of like a I've never been historically anyway. This is something I've had to like learn as a skill and get much better at. But historically, I've been more of like a go with the flow, like have ambitions and create things, but kind of like let them take me where they will, rather than like saying, okay, my life has to look this way, and then I'm going to do this next step and whatever. Um, there
Yeah,
was so much
yeah.
like activity and business coming from these things that it was clear to me that there was plenty that would kind of that would occupy me and potentially make money from, and like kind of distribute it for a couple of years there, it seemed like.
Nice. So that commercial came while you were doing this other stuff. You're just working, and then
Yeah.
the opportunity, I assume, must have came through the work you're doing,
Well,
right?
okay, so to be clear, the commercial was a contest, so I produced it and financed it, but it was a
Ah,
contest that I thought would lead to other opportunities, and it was this like national contest by the Richard Dawkins Foundation for Reason and Science, which I was at that time, and I don't describe myself this way anymore, but I considered myself like an evangelical atheist. Okay. Um, and so I was like really interested in that general sub pocket of culture and like secularism. And so I directed this very inclusive, very affirmative commercial that everybody was like, there's no way that this came from Richard Dawkins, which was about like, I'm a Christian American and I believe in a secular America, and I'm a spiritual American and I believe in a secular America for these reasons. And just a very like, it was like that. And so the contest, the prize was to like have dinner with him in DC and go to this Reason rally in Washington, DC, on the National Mall. And I thought that would turn into me like directing commercials for like the secularist movement, basically. But I ended up having a really not positive experience, let's say, with Richard Dawkins, and that I kind of had a falling out with that movement. So, but that's a good example. I just kind of like saw where things would take me and like saw what I could make of it, basically. So,
nice. Yeah. So the good thing about that is you're like, well, there's nothing wrong with me in terms of getting things
yeah,
done. Like, I know how to make stuff, which is which is
yeah,
good. And it's interesting though. You could also see learning a lesson on what you're willing to make and work with, because I feel
mm,
like anything creative, it's so easy to get
yeah,
compromised once money comes into play or another opinion comes into
totally.
play. Which is what I hate mostly. Like I love
Mm,
film, the ideas of film and screenwriting and things of that
yeah,
nature. What I hate is the business aspect of it. The fact that someone writes
mm,
something and then someone comes, add
mm,
that, tweak that, do that, and then the end product I see that I may like, that creator probably hates it. So I feel terrible for them. Like, oh man,
yeah,
like,
totally.
I remember hearing that about a few movies, but specifically Half
Mm,
Baked with Dave
yeah.
Chappelle, Neil Brennan, and they wanted to make a darker, blacker
Oh,
comedy,
I could see that.
and they the producers and everything came in like, no, we want it
Right.
goofier, and they hated it,
Uh,
and I'm like, that sucks because everyone
yeah,
loves it,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
It's like,
Totally,
this isn't what I
totally,
wanted.
totally. Yeah, that's
Oh
that's
man.
I so as much as all this stuff sounds cool, I mean the problem with what I was doing is I didn't really set out to do any of that for commercial purposes. I was doing it for the art of it, which meant that I got to kind of retain creative control as we're talking about, and kind of make the art that I wanted to make to some extent, except with the I mean, the plays, I was working with somebody, but like it was just me and them to make the piece, and then a producer potentially. Whoops, sorry. And but like, I was kind of doing this stuff. Like Cecilia's art was kind of on her terms too, so it wasn't like being affected by the market, so to speak, or by outside voices. Um, but the problem with that is it's really risky. And what ended up happening is like I wasn't doing it from a commercial perspective. And after like trying to pursue these things for 2 or 3 years within my kind of like idealism, uh, I ended up really burning out on it because I was not making enough money to really thrive or maybe even survive at some point. And I really ended up having kind of an implosion of this first leg of my career, I guess you could say. Um, and they were totally unsustainable after a while. So, the value of taking other voices or whatever indicates, I think, that you're working with people who like have a vested interest in it, which is probably a good thing for
Yeah.
commercial
Yep.
purposes. And in my case, I wasn't really doing that, and that ended up biting me. So,
It's interesting. They'll tell you when
yeah,
it's over. You're like, I can keep going. They're like, no,
right,
it's done.
right.
It's done.
Yeah, because otherwise
So
you have to
go ahead.
decide that something is done. I mean, on the flip side of that, and that's
Right.
a really hard decision. So anyway, there's a lot we could talk about there, but yeah.
So did you make when you were burning out? Did you just have to say, look, this is when you just started cutting stuff off?
Well, I had already finished these pieces, um, and but I had other film projects that I was starting to surmount, like to take on. Um, like I was going to make a documentary about Pastafarianism, for example, which is like the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. Um, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's
I am not. I'm literally
yeah,
googling that for
yeah,
later because I don't. Yeah, there we
it's
go.
his
There we
noodliness,
go.
I mean, it's a tongue-in-cheek parody of religion. It was kind of continuing on my it's like a fake religion basically, and it was continuing on my like evangelical atheist quest, but um but as I started that project, and I actually filmed another documentary called What Love Is, and I did a first cut of it and screened it to people, where I embedded myself in this couple, this like romantic, this like guy and gal, these friends of mine's apartment for like a month and a half, and just was a fly on the wall, like like observing their relationship basically. I was very interested in learning about love, again. But I saw these two projects I was starting, and I was like, wait a second, I just learned the hard way that like I actually need to have a business plan for this. I need to be thinking about this commercially, because like the previous pass of doing this, I like wasn't cutting it. Like I wasn't, I barely had two nickels to rub together, and so I can't just like blindly start out these two new projects without thinking through like the commerciality of them. So it gave me pause, and I ended up putting the kibosh on those, and ended up doing like a career pivot actually at that point.
Okay, let's talk that. Let's talk this career pivot, which it took me a while to realize it wasn't the worst thing. My first
Mm.
venture, I didn't know it was over until it was
Oh
over
yeah.
after the fact. So,
What is it that started signaling to you that it was over? Oh, you said, what does that mean? Like it wasn't over till after it was over?
it was just like it. I wanted to build a fitness networking
Mm.
app, and it was the fact that like me not being a developer and having to contract development
Mm.
work, and the fact that it's not like a carpenter. You can't just build it, give it to me, and I just like
Totally.
submit it and it's fine forever. You have to maintain
Yep.
it,
Yep.
update it, and it was just realizing the depths of coding. You know what
Yep.
I mean? Just with the maintenance of it, all of that. And after a while, you're like, yeah, I can't do
Totally.
this. And then everyone else is like, I don't know if you can do this. Oh no, I'll prove you wrong. And the worst part is, of course, the movie side of it. You're like, no, everyone's gonna count me out. That's when I'll do it. You're like,
Mm.
nah, it's
Yeah.
over. Um, so yeah, what did you decide to pivot into?
Well, you know, I ended up deciding. A buddy of mine was running a startup. So I was living in Manhattan around this time. I moved. Well, I didn't mean to move here, but an ex girlfriend was my girlfriend at the time was living here in Manhattan. I mean, I'm in Brooklyn now, so I'm saying here, but was living in Manhattan, and I'd kind of connected with her in an effort to distribute the mayor, because I wanted to get it like qualified for Academy Awards. So for that, you have to get it to screen at a theater in both LA and New York for a week. And so I was out here in Manhattan, and one of my plays actually played off Broadway also, and but kind of that was like the last hurrah. And a buddy of mine was out here, and he said, Jared, there's these like coding boot camps that are starting to pop up, and this was 8 years ago. And so there's one called Flatiron School, and he had heard of it because he was running a startup out here in Manhattan, and he said, and he was a close friend of mine from growing up, and he had taken a programming class with me in 6th grade. and he was like, you used to be good at this. It's like a pretty lucrative career, and it could have the kind of impact you keep talking about that you're wanting to have. Because I had ultimately felt kind of, um, again, I was idealistic and kind of naive. I was young, but um, I had thought I would have a bigger impact with my films and with the theater and whatever. And so and I wanted to, and so I felt kind of a little bitter about that, frankly. And I felt like, okay, I think that the way to have impact is going to be by creating interactive, dynamic, experiential, transformative art is kind of how I thought about it at the time. And what that means is, like, if you imagine a movie or a piece of art that like can become personalized to the viewer as they watch it, and then have like a sustained relationship with them over time. That was kind of the abstract notion in my head about kind of what I wanted to do around art in order to make it have a bigger impact. And I also saw that technology was the way to scale impact as well. And he was telling me about these boot camps. And so I thought about it long and hard and had to really kind of motivate it, because I had this 15-year identity as a, artist and as like filmmaker, basically. Um, and so the prospect of becoming a software engineer, was pretty intimidating, because here I am, I'm like 27 years old, and to make that career shift, I hadn't done that type of work professionally, so it was just kind of intimidating. And but I ended up deciding to do that. So I applied to a boot camp, these two boot camps in San Francisco, and got into one called Hack Reactor, which was kind of like billed as this really good one. And yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother story and a chapter of my life, but that's what I ended up doing. I moved to San Francisco and I did this boot camp basically, and became a software engineer.
Yeah, we definitely got to make a movie, the Jarrett movie. We're gonna need. There's so many phases here that we could talk about forever. Like the
I'm
whole film.
skipping a lot of details. I mean, like, I'm trying to. We
Yeah.
only got so much time here, but I mean, it's a whole journey. So
Yeah. When you were doing that, how long was that boot
the
camp?
boot camp is 3 months, and it was
Okay.
an incredible experience. I had the time of my life, but it was scary. It was crazy. It was just an intense, transformative life experience. I mean, you're jumping into this rocket ship with like, 40 other people who are all looking to like transform their lives, like intentionally. And, for most of them, they were making a career pivots, not all of them, but most of them. And so, but you're all like starting from kind of scratch basically. And kind of, so it's very like vulnerable in a way, and everybody's kind of humbled in that. Uh, and you're all learning this stuff really hands on, and having to partner together to succeed and learn this totally new paradigm, which was, web engineering. And so it was an incredible experience, but quite a wild ride at that time.
When you're done, do they help you with job resources, or
They
how
they
do you?
do they do. They give you like an accountability buddy, and they give you structure, and they help match you with potential employers. And at least this is what they did, 8 years ago. Um, and this was the first year they were in business, by the way. Like, I was very early in this boot camp thing. Now boot camps are very popular, but which is cool to see. But um, yeah, and every single person in my cohort had a job within 3 months that tried, and except for me, and I didn't try was the problem. Um,
Oh, okay.
I was
Okay.
too scared, frankly, and so I ended up going into there's a whole other like sub chapter of my life, but basically I ended up getting really into like the transformational festival scene in San Francisco, um, which is kind of like Burning Man, basically, and those types of things, for like a year and a half, and put off starting my career as a software engineer because of a huge amount of like imposter syndrome and just kind of like fear about surmounting this new chapter in my life, basically. But eventually, after a year and a half, I kind of faced the music again and hit another rock bottom, and kind of called out to a friend I had made, who was a software engineer that I had met at this consciousness hacking meetup in San Francisco, my first week there when I was interviewing for Hack Reactor. And he was a lifelong programmer, and he had a PhD from MIT in computer science, and he had been programming for like 22 years. And I reached out to him and I was like, hey, um, do you think you might be able to, like, could I come and apprentice under you? And like, are you working as a software engineer right now? He said, yeah. And he was like a huge angel in my life who, um, and I don't mean like angel investor. Like he was literally like, let me come apprentice under him at his job and even split his pay with me to help me get my software engineering career going and just have me feel like I was doing it in like a safe, like supportive context. So made a huge impact in my life. And that's how I kind of got my software engineering career started about 6 years ago.
Nice, man. Shout out to you, my
Yeah.
friend. Thank you for that.
His name is
So,
Greg, for the record. So thank you, Greg. Huge props.
Greg, you're
Yeah.
awesome. You're awesome. So we got you in, which must have been great to kind of get your feet wet, get in there. How long did it take you to not feel like an imposter? I should say.
I still kind of feel like an imposter, and I've been doing it for 6 years now or something. But I mean, and I programmed when I was a kid, and so it kind of never quite goes away, I would say, because engineering is like always evolving as a field, and there's just always stuff you don't know. But it probably took me like probably 2.5 years or 2 years to get to a point where I felt like I could hold it down on my own well enough, basically. Um, I mean, I went and worked at a startup well, they were actually based out of New York. I worked remotely for a year doing like what's called hyper video. So like applying machine learning to video editing and video search. Kind of imagine a YouTube, but you can like search for segments of videos, right? Like within each video. Um, and then I did that for about a year. And then realized I needed more support. And so I switched it up and found a job at this company called Influx Data, which was doing an open source time series database. And it was really there that I began to like blossom as a software engineer and kind of start to feel less imposter syndrome, and was there for a couple of years and then decided that I was ready for the next level and kind of focus more on kind of my passion and what had gotten me into software now that I had the skills and could kind of be more choosy about what job I took. And so I ended up deciding to move to New York and took a job at a company called Paperspace, where I was hired to build a machine learning platform to enable anybody to train and deploy machine learning models at any scale.
Nice. So now you're coding. Like this is
coding. I mean, I was building technical tools for engineers. Yeah, for
Right.
like 4 years there, or 5 years.
Yeah, to me, those are, I always know those companies by, if I'm ever looking for new jobs and new careers, the ones I'm not going to apply for. Like, we're like, we do this for this, and I'm like, I have no idea what any of these
Yeah.
words mean. Good luck to this
Right.
company. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not.
I mean, honestly,
I
I
can't tell.
didn't know what I was doing when I joined Influx Data. I mean, it took me a few months to understand what the hell we were even building, to be honest with you. So, I mean, don't let that stop you. I'll put it that way.
So from being on your own, managing, making
Mhm.
films, pushing those, and then as opposed to working, did you? Can you do well in both? Was it hard for you to be an employee after you'd spent a good portion of your young adult years doing
Yeah.
your own thing? Was it
Yeah.
tough?
It was. I think the toughest. I think in terms of like power dynamics of being an employee versus employer or whatever, or kind of business owner. I In order to kind of make this transition, I had to kind of accept at a deep level that that was going to be the deal. And so by the time I like started working, I had already put on the right mentality of like, I'm here to learn, and had the humility and wasn't kind of, I don't want to, I shouldn't claim that too strong, but anyway, just my mentality was like, you know, be, be humble, learn, you don't know, you're starting from scratch, just like soak it all up and work with people. Um, so from that perspective, I don't think it was a problem for me. Um, but definitely, I think the part that was challenging is that, I had spent so many years doing like works of passion and art, and like with like creative meaning, I guess you could say, not to take anything away from technology, but like, I'm talking about characters and story and symbolism and all that. And now I'm doing work that, um, like I'm much less adept at and have done for much less time. And, also doesn't have that same kind of like symbolic resonance, I guess. um, I mean, so I don't know, but it actually really appreciated it. I find software engineering people are super collaborative and like very humble generally. I mean, you'll find people who aren't, but for the most part, everyone I've encountered has been super humble, very much a team player, able to communicate, willing to support you and help you out. And I really loved that collaboration experience. It's been like that for me the whole time. So I think the people and the culture of it made it pretty easy in that way.
Nice. So naturally, the bug to get out on your back out on your own came
Totally.
eventually. Is that how? Now let's get into
Yeah.
pineapple
Yeah.
AF. How does I don't know what to
Yeah.
say. I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, I know what I want
Yeah.
to say. How did that come about?
Yeah. So you know, I was clear with these employers every step of the way that I saw myself forming my own company again someday. And so, like, when I joined Paperspace, I told them before I even accepted the job, like, I don't know how long I'm going to be with you guys. I'm going to start my own company sooner or later. And so, like, I'll come work with you for, a year or two, and I don't know how things will evolve, but like, that's where I see myself heading, you know? And so, sure enough, you know, all the while after. So, okay, so let's take a step back. While I was at Influx Data, I worked on this project that I spearheaded that was a security overhaul of our web application, where we introduced the concept of role based access control. So, meaning like different users with different levels of permissions to do stuff into our application, which was called Chronograph. And Chronograph was like a visualizing time series data. So kind of like imagine you have you're a company with it. Now, this doesn't matter actually. I can explain this to people if they're interested later. But the point is, I worked on this security project with these two guys in particular, and the three of us became really good friends, and we worked really well together. And after I left Influx and I was working at Paperspace, I continued to cultivate those relationships and work on side projects with both of them independently. Um, and I didn't really, with one of them, it was explicitly like we both wanted to form our own startup one day, and maybe between us, we could like create something. And so we just wanted to like work within our relationship and work on anything and see where it took us. And so like I would work at Paperspace, more than full time, but then reserve 3 days a week for like 2 hours or so each time. One time on the weekends, and then like on a Tuesday, Thursday evening, late at night, to work with him on like technology side projects. And then with this other guy, we ended up doing these. Um, he was a designer and kind of a creative guy, and so we ended up doing these pineapple pop-ups, which was like pineapple themed pop-up restaurants, basically. Um, and we went to Hawaii on like a pineapple pilgrimage, and like the pineapple thing is a whole story that would be in a whole other podcast episode. But suffice to say, it's the pineapple for me represents like taking something I'm passionate about and that is also ridiculous in a self-aware way, and like doing it in having a healthy relationship to it. Because like when I first discovered pineapple, it almost killed me when I started eating a bunch of it when I was young. And so I had to learn to have a responsible, healthy relationship to pineapple. And so this guy kind of was into like being ridiculous about pineapple with me. So between the two of them, I was probably putting in like, I don't know, 10 hours a week or so on average into these side projects. And with this vision of forming my own company eventually. And then after about a year or so, year and a half of being at Paperspace, the bug really started, as you use the word, the bug really started to kind of like eat me stronger and stronger. And I was like, okay, I feel like I've got the skills. I've now actually done product management somewhat at Paperspace, helping release this like free public notebooks product. Um, and I built this whole platform, and I just have much more perspective on like business of technology. And so I went and did product school, actually, which is like a product management boot camp. And I learned a ton about product management thinking. And kind of the intention was I'm probably going to form my own company. And by this point, I had found this set of other products and kind of brought them to my technological collaborator from Influx. And we said, wow, yeah, this is kind of, there's something in here that we think we want to build and that aligns with both of what we want to create and kind of what we've been doing together. I think we're ready to form a company. And so we both made the leap after like probably about 2 years of like working on this, like moonlighting, I guess you could say, building out these side hustles into what became our actual company, Pineapple AF.
I this is why I hate developers. People like you. It's so frustrating because I feel like everyone who's not a developer, they have this. We all have these zany
Yeah.
ideas without any thought into how it's actually going to
Right.
work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we get this new app where you use it to like find people anywhere in the world in like two
Yeah.
seconds, and
Yeah.
like, it's always this crazy
Yeah.
stuff. How does it make money? I
Yeah.
don't know. Whereas like 99% of developers I
Yeah.
know, they know development.
Yeah.
So the majority of their tools are either about development tools or just we know the process. We know what we're trying to achieve
Mm-hmm.
here. We know what's into
Mm-hmm.
it. So let's just work together and come
Mm-hmm.
with it. And I swear to you, it always works
Yeah.
well. Like, oh, you're just like, damn, I wish my brain worked like that.
Well,
um,
engineering is a learnable skill, and I sincerely encourage anyone who's listening to try out some courses in it. And like freecodecamp.org is a great resource to like find a community to learn some coding for free, and like it pays off dividends over time for sure.
so let's go. Let's describe the company. What is, I see the tagline: tools for people to have healthy relationships. How does it work?
Yeah, so Pineapple AF is okay. So I mean, we're still in stealth technically, so I can share more about like kind of the inspiration and the problem we're thinking about. Um,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, so like, um, so the mission of Pineapple AF is to create tools for people to have healthy relationships. And basically, have you seen Social Dilemma? The Social Dilemma, or heard of it?
Yeah. I've seen like 2 seconds. I'm like, I'm just gonna get
Yeah,
depressed. I'm
yeah.
not.
Yeah. So the social, I haven't seen it either, but everybody tells me about it, and I know the basic concept, I guess I could say, without sounding too arrogant, which is basically just, we've got these major companies, which are Facebook and Google and, Instagram being a subsidiary of Facebook, I guess, or at least one of their products. Um, and like we are all beholden to their, to being exploited by them for all of our data, and we are the product. And that's a dismal reality that we're all living in. And so um, I feel that pain. I feel exploited by those companies, and I am a user of their products. And I look at, as we're approaching the 2020 election, and I'm kind of looking and feeling the, um, you know, everything that seems to be like boiling up and boiling over in our society. It all felt interrelated, and I felt like basically our social media platforms and our media platforms were incentivized because of their business models to exploit us, to put it simply. And
Mhm.
and I felt like that was leading to these divergent realities that we have on the ground here in the United States, of people who believe different truths about what is happening in the world, whether it's COVID or the election results, or whatever. And like, I'm not taking any sides, but like, that's a problem. And I think that part of what is driving that is the structures and shapes of the platforms we use to communicate, namely Facebook, Twitter, and media sources. They have an incentive to capture your attention for as long as possible, and they will do it at any cost in order to drive their advertising revenue dollars and subscription dollars. And so this is a huge problem for society, and we're all being affected by it. So that's all, like, I think real stuff, and but pretty like grandiose thinking. But basically, to be honest, I got to this point in my career and I said, I feel like I have the skills and I've created the products that I feel like I could do something about this problem. And I think there's a huge problem that we're all being affected by. And, the pineapple vibe is all about generosity and ridiculousness and having a sense of humor. And like, for me, it's about bringing together different points of view in a constructive, playful way, and like productive way. Because if you look at a pineapple, you've got this crown and you've got the body, and they just look totally different from each other, and yet somehow they come together to form this a delicious fruit in the middle that is surprising in all kinds of ways. Um, And so, you know, trying to kind of cover a lot of ground here, but basically my co-founder and I said, I think we can build something that shows a different future, a different path forward of how like people can communicate and how we can relate to each other that will actually foster constructive, healthy relationships across society, starting with between individuals rather than the current structures and technologies we use today, which are exploitative by nature.
I like it. Yeah, I'm interested in see. It's first of all, pineapples are weird for me. Like, there's times I either hate it or I
Yeah.
love it. It's the best raw fruit. It's my favorite raw
Okay.
fruit.
Okay.
Like sliced pineapple, I'll get from Whole Foods. I could eat like a
Yeah,
bucket of that.
totally.
But like pineapple with other food, I hate it. It's weird.
So pineapple on pizza. How do you feel about that?
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But,
See, this is
but
the
like,
beautiful thing about pineapple is that it is a divisive fruit in a funny way. And so like people either love it or hate it, and people have strong opinions about pineapple on pizza. But like at the end of the day, it's a pineapple, right? And like so we can all like have a laugh about it, basically. Um, no, I love pineapple on pizza personally, but I respect anybody who doesn't like it on their pizza, and they're okay with me too. Um, but
nice.
yeah, I think the kind of spirit of what we're doing is there's a lot of divergence and disharmony and destructive kind of communication happening out there, whether that's through canceling, I mean, basically you on these current social media platforms, you're talking in public, and if you say one thing wrong, the entire world is going to destroy you. And
Hmm.
like that's a problem.
Hmm.
How can you have nuanced points of view, and how can you demonstrate learning and growth, and how can you like just be an authentic human when that's liable to happen with anything you say? And so all it does is drive polarization, and we believe that there's a different way forward, and we believe we're capable of creating technology that can support that different way.
Nice, man. This is good. Sound like it's just this. There's so much. We definitely have to have you come back because there's so much more, so much we can talk about in this
Sure.
realm. Um, how are you feeling about entrepreneurship this time around, as opposed to when you were working on the mayor?
Yeah.
What's your
So this time is a whole new ball game. I mean, I've definitely learned a ton. Um, I took stock of all those experiences, and I've had many failed and ventures and partnerships and relationships in my life, and so I just kind of took stock of all that stuff and whatever failed means. But failed can mean all kinds of stuff. That doesn't mean it was bad, but it's just all kinds of learning experiences. And um, the like even just from a business structure perspective, for example, like I went and just formed an LLC through LegalZoom back 10 years, 15 years ago, right? This time around, I like talked to a lawyer for a number of months about what type of corporate structure I wanted and why, and ended up deciding, for example, to form a public benefit corporation, and got very clear and gained conviction about that decision before doing it, and talked with my co-founder about that as well at great lengths. So even from the very basic thing of like what business structure to use, I've taken a lot more time and done a ton more diligence. And then I've thought a lot about like, well, what is important and critical inside of a commercial partnership and business partnership in order to set us up for success. So, whereas in my previous ventures, right, like if both partners just immediately own the company outright, then if you like have disagreement, there's nothing kind of keeping you driving towards alignment. There's not a real incentive to like keep working together necessarily, except unless you just both love the product itself somehow. So we said, okay, well, yeah, we're going to go with like the public benefit corporation because it provides equity, right? Like just like it's basically the same as a C corporation, except with an expanded definition of fiduciary duty, where your fiduciary duty is that you are also responsible to all stakeholders, not just your shareholders. So you're not just beholden to the maximization of profit. You're also beholden, in addition to profit, to your mission. And so our mission is to create tools for people to have healthy relationships. But then you get everything that a C corporation has. So equity, and we're vesting over a certain period of time. And that should keep us aligned and both working towards this common goal. Um, so anyway, that's some detail, but all that is to say, like I've taken way more time and done way more diligence and had much more exhaustive conversations because I learned the hard way what the consequences were of not doing it the first time around. and I really want to set us up for success. And so I've really pulled in a lot of resources. We have an amazing lawyer, we have a great accountant, we've got bookkeeping help, we've got each other, we've got a designer, we've got advisors, and we have a clear vision for where we're heading. We've got a clear mission. We've talked a ton about values, and we took a long time to come to that mission, right? Like all these things we've really invested time into very thoughtfully and considerately. And that I hope is going to pay off, but it's just, I'm taking a lot more time to like do my diligence and do things a good way that's going to set us up for success and have a really strong foundation long term here.
Nice. I outside of that, do you have any other advice? Because that sounded like sound advice, really basically learning from your mistakes. But is there anything else that you'd want someone who's in the same position as you, someone maybe currently a business owner, someone kind of waffling on the
Yeah.
decision? Anything you think would be helpful?
Well, I think first of all, um, every personality is different, and it depends what you're trying to accomplish in the world. Me and my co-founder had to be, and this is probably advice listeners have heard before, but like you have to be very clear. Like, are you trying to build a small business? Are you trying to build a lifestyle business? Are you trying to build a business that can have global scale and impact? And you need to make sure that both. I was felt that it was important, critical, actually, not just important, critical, vital to make sure that me and my partner were aligned about what our vision was for this company and what we wanted to do in the world. So that's a huge one, and then cultivating that relationship with my co-founder. His name is Michael. We've known each other for 4.5 years, and we've worked together and like really did a ton of side projects and spent a bunch of time like learning and feeling each other out and really coming to trust each other, and forging a really strong relationship before jumping into this. I think I made more hasty decisions the last time around. So, it's kind of like these fundamental foundational things. You can get really excited because you have a great idea for a business and you can just jump right into it. But I think I'm not, I can't speak from the experience of, I can't sit here and tell you, Joel, like, okay, we've been super successful. We've sold X, Y, and Z, and we're worth this much money. I mean, we're still in stealth. So it's like, I can't say those things, but my belief based on what I've seen in my life in other areas is that by really taking the time, and I know I'm kind of repeating myself here, but really taking the time to make all these types of fundamental decisions and make sure these relationships to each other and to the business and to the state, even, and to the government and to society are clear, and you've talked it all through, are going to give us a really strong framework and foundation, and clarity of how to build out products that actually deliver on our mission over time. So I think just like having whatever conversations you need and having the hard conversations and making sure you kind of get it all out there and like take the time to have those conversations multiple times and over time. I believe that has given us a strong foundation to operate from for a long time to come. That's probably the biggest thing.
Nice. Well, Jared, I appreciate this. It's you have done a lot. You've been to a lot of places,
Mm-hmm.
and the the hardest cities to be in, like the most fun, but like also the most competitive places ever. But this has been cool because it's kind of just you just kind of like a rolling stone. You were out there, man. You seen where the world took you, and it's good to see that people can be open to pivoting, finding new things that probably they didn't think they would like, and then also reaching out to people and finding help when you can get it.
Yeah.
I'm excited for Pineapple, man. I when do you think stealth you'll be out of stealth?
So I think I think even possibly tomorrow. I mean, like, I hate giving a timeline as like a product manager, let's say, but like I wrote like 2,000 lines of code last week, and my co-founder has written so much more than me to bring us to this moment where we've been in alpha. We have a number of users we've been working with for months here, okay, and we've built all kinds of technology and covered all kinds of ground. Um, and we've learned an enormous amount. And so, we've kind of, you know, so all of this is to say, like, we have gotten to a point where everything we've learned is kind of coming to fruition, let's say. pineapple fruition. Within the next few days, we will have something that is meant and designed to be able to be used independently of us and be useful in people's lives. And that's a really exciting moment for us. So, I mean, you know, I don't know exactly when the stealth label comes off. We want to be careful because we are being competitive with, some major, I think, social media type companies over time. And they have so much engineering resources that we just have to be careful about what we're doing in reality. But we are like within the week going to be releasing something that is meant to be able to gain traction on its own, and that's very exciting.
I'm excited for it. Can't wait. I can't wait. If there's any way the Moonlighters Club can help, we're gonna help.
Thanks, Joel.
So
And I want
we're
to
pumped.
say real quick,
But
real quick, that even though I'm still doing this, I'm still moonlighting on something else, which is that I have a furniture like brand that I'm developing on the side. So that's my like main side hustle right now, is a furniture company, basically. It's not officially a company yet, but it's a brand. So the moonlighting never continues, and I get a ton of creative energy out of doing it. So um, it hasn't reached the end of the line there.
nice. Well, before we head out, is there anything you want to share with the audience in terms of contact info, anything they can look out for now?
Yeah, I mean, soon, like I said, within a week ish, maybe tomorrow, but within a week, you can, well, actually, right now, you can go to pineapple.af. That's our website, pineapple.af. No .com, just .af. And you can try out an initial experience that we have up there. And then over the next week or so, that experience will morph into the thing that I was just mentioning that we're releasing shortly. So it is geared around communication. So through that, you would be able to communicate with me. So if anybody is interested, they can certainly go try out a taste of the pineapple experience at pineapple.af. And I would love to get your feedback of any kind. We're early days, we're iterating rapidly, we got our eyes open, our ears open to the ground, and we're learning a ton. So I'd love to hear from, soon we'll be like probably we will be moving into like investment fundraising mode. But so if you're interested, if anything I said struck a chord, just reach out, pineapple.af. If you're interested in seeing a different paradigm that will emerge over the next year or two about like a more constructive, healthier way to relate to each other through digital technology, please come check us out. And I'd love to hear from you and connect with you. Pineapple.af.
Awesome. Well, Jarrett, thank you. This was good. This was really good, and it was really cool just to hear this. And I'm excited to see what happens.
Joel, thank you.
So for everyone listening,
yeah,
of course, thanks for doing this.
This is cool.
For everyone listening, Moonlighters Club, you can find our website. All of our content will be there, moonlightersclub.com. In the process of uploading everything there. If you're listening to this, you already know where to find us, so I don't have to go through that. But we have plenty of interviews coming down the pipeline. If you're interested in being interviewed yourself or know someone, feel free to reach out to us, Joel at moonlightersclub.com. We'd love to hear your story or to just hear more stories. So Jared, again, thank you. I'm super pumped about Pineapple AF and the furniture. I gotta get some furniture too, man. So yeah. I want to see both.
Bismuth NYC is the name of that one. Yeah.
But until next time, everyone, we'll see you.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks, everybody.